Hey, no worries, man. Thanks, Brown. I'll see you in a minute.
Hey, sorry I'm late.
Oh, dude, I forgot to say that Chris Brown is going to do the last Fireside Chats.
You said I got to do the last one.
Yeah, but it's Chris Brown.
Chris Brown? What does Chris know about karate?
Look, Fireside Chats it's not all about karate.
You're not all about karate!
Chris Brown, this is our very last Fireside Chats.
Oh, this is sad.
I know. But we couldn't, we had to end it with a bang, and we couldn't think of anybody better to do it than...
Smells like Kirk Jones in here.
It does. He may or may not have been sitting in that very seat right there. Just
I can tell.
Big misunderstanding.
I can tell.
His karate was great. The standing Russian was great, but we had to end it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
But I'd be remiss if we didn't open this thing up with at least a conversation talking about what's going on in the chaos of our world right now.
Oh, yeah.
In the wake of George Floyd, in the wake of riots in LA, Atlanta, New York. And I can only imagine what it's like to be in your position. I think probably the people that are under the biggest pressure are people with a platform right now. And I think you said it perfectly in your video on Sunday of there's a little bit of that damned if you do, damned if you don't of if I speak out, I'm going to get my wrist slapped. But if I don't speak out, there's a lot of those claims of, man, to be silent is to be racist. And it feels like a lot of broad brush strokes being painted right now on both sides. And I'm curious for you, again, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, sitting here as the pastor of North Coast Church, what's this week been like for you?
Yeah, I think you nailed it perfectly. It's one of those things that you got to choose why you're going to get shot. You can't choose not to get shot. You're going to choose why. And we made a conscious decision. If people are going to be upset at us, it's because of the stand we took and what we said. You're not going to be upset at us because we didn't take a stand and we didn't say anything. And that became very clear last week. Let's let people know where we stand and let's put words to it. And that's going to start a conversation that's going to happen for months and months to come. But and on the other hand, you can't complain. Okay, this is what we signed up for. It's what you signed up for.
Right.
I don't want to be the NFL player, on Sunday night that's like, hey, guys were hitting me today. Like I showed up to the game and guys were hitting me. And it's like, you're in the NFL. If you didn't want to get hit, don't put on the helmet and pads. And I feel like that's ministry today. Ministry today isn't, let's see, who's the most lovable guy in town? Who does everybody like? Who does everyone look up to? Oh, the pastor. No. That's back on Little House in the Prairie days. That's back in 1800s. Now it's like, no, it's what you signed up for. But I get to choose why I take the hits. And some of them are stupid. I misspoke. I said something that could have been interpreted wrong, and I left myself open to that. Others are just, all right, this is what we're called to do. The gospel's not going to be fun and easy at times, and people aren't going to like it from all sides. That's it.
You represent a vast network of pastors, and North Coast doesn't stand on an island by itself. What's your interaction been like this week with, you have many friends in the sphere that are people of color and that are African-American pastors. What's this week been like in conversation with them?
Yeah, what's funny is, especially from last week to this week, I'm going to be careful because someone may hear this. I don't think I've had one conversation with a white pastor outside of North Coast. All my conversations with pastors, I've had 6 conversations, all with black pastors. Because right now, I don't care what the white community thinks, and I don't mean that disparagingly toward them. I am a white guy in America. I know what a white guy in America thinks. What I'm not sure of, and what I know in the areas, I don't know what a black guy in America is thinking right now. And so I've been reaching out to them and conversations, they're great friendships, but just going, help me understand this. Or, man, I said this, how was it taken this way? Or, hey, I think this is what I'm going to do in the next 2 weeks. What's your advice on that? And I'm leaning heavily into my friends that just go, Chris, let me tell you why this is a bigger issue than you think. And I think that's what we got to come to grips with. I think if you're a white teenager in America and you're like, okay, I get what happened was wrong. I get there's police violence and brutality in a small segment and percentage. I get there's racism. But if you happen to be maybe a white student in America and you're like, why are people so angry? Why are people taking it to that level? I'm not talking about looters and rioters. I'm talking about some amazing African Americans, great men and women of great education, great character. Why are they upset? And if you don't have an answer to why, you better start a conversation with them, not with you and your own group.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that's what I've had people in my life, all the way back to working as a youth pastor in the inner city in Los Angeles, to go, oh, my eyes have been open to a lot of frustration and anger from that community.
Yeah. And I think that's been such a cool push for our 910 community to go, let's make sure that we're learners. And we opened up our Zoom service this last weekend with just that stance of, we better be people who are asking questions. We better be people that are sitting or standing in the gap, having conversations and starting those conversations, and not necessarily taking a stance on either side without first being able to engage in humility and go, hey, help me see what I don't see and help me understand what I don't understand. I think for me, one of the most eye-opening things has been just the response to the Black Lives Matter hashtag or movement or whatever it may be with the controversial all lives matter. And I was reading an article this morning that just said, man, we don't go to funerals and say, I've experienced pain too. You don't walk into a cancer ward and go, like, there are other diseases, It's like I
had tonsillitis.
Right. It's like you address what's currently happening. And so I think sometimes maybe the Black Lives Matter hashtag is read as like only Black Lives Matter. Yeah. And that's sure, there are people on the extreme side of it. Like there are extremists in most things these days, but it feels like for the vast majority, there really is that, like, we're focusing on the problem at hand. We're not saying only Black Lives Matter. We're saying there's a fire right now, and let's focus on that specifically, not just pour water on every house on the street and making sure that, let's focus on the issue at hand. And yeah, I'm curious for you, maybe just kind of last thing on this topic before we dive into Philippians, but as a white male, like you said, in those conversations, maybe you can help us out, right? Me as a white male as well. And how do you walk into those conversations? Because it does feel like we're walking on ice sometimes and going like, I have to tiptoe on this. But I think, you're not one who tiptoes. No. And you walk into those conversations boldly. And I'm curious, like, how do you do that, and how do you do it well?
It's sort of like the old scene. You watch it in the old war movies or even current war movies, and there's a field, and it's landmines, but it's the only way to get, to help, and you got to go through this field, but someone's going to step on something. The conversation of race right now feels like that for white Americans. I want to enter it, but man, I think I'm going to blow a foot off, somewhere in this. And I've always told people, not just on the issue of race, but the depth you can go with an individual directly correlates to the depth of relationship you have with them. For instance, I'm out in Carlsbad Village, walking with my wife, and I see some guy smoking a cigarette, and he just flicks the cigarette butt, onto the sidewalk. I don't know that guy. I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to, excuse me, you need to pick that up. Man, you can get shot today for that. I don't care who they are. Now, if it's somebody I know, I'm walking behind you and you flick your cigarette butt. I'm like, yo, Austin.
We might have a different conversation first.
We might talk about the cigarette butt, but I'm like, yeah, Austin, seriously? And you're like, hi, I'm around. Why? Because it's the depth of conversation. So whatever issue you want to talk with someone, you better know, where are we relationally? Because some relationships are surface and you go, I want to go here. And I go, ooh. They might not let you, and this may backfire on you big time. Mine, I have been close to guys for years now in my life in the black community that I love, I have a relationship with. I have the dinner nights with them. We have the sushi nights. I know their wives. I know their kids. We hang out at our conferences together. Anytime they're in Southern California, I know Amy and I are going to get an invite to go, hey, we're down for 4 days at a conference or on a vacation. What night do you have with us? So these are conversations I don't tiptoe in. I just run. In fact, I dig up the landmines and I just throw them together and go, what the heck?
Yeah.
Okay, help me with this. Because dude,
there's already relationships.
Because the relationship's there. And that's where I would challenge and just go, you have a minority friend. I don't care what race, creed, background, color. Just go, help me understand. Does this impact you at all? Do you see this differently because of a color of skin issue? Man, those are great issues. Same. You have a white student talking to a white student. Go, hey, so all this stuff going on, I don't get this. Do you get this? Just open up those dialogues to what do we know and what do we feel and what can we learn from someone else? Because honestly, just to say, well, you should talk to a black person, that's a real disservice to African Americans, to black people. It's like, say, well, just talk to a white guy. Is your family French? Is your family German? Is it Dutch? Are you European? Are you? And so we got to understand, just saying that someone's black, therefore they feel this way, is an incredible disservice just to that. Because now we're stereotyping feeling angst, anger, response just on skin tone. That in itself is wrong. Some of the most amazing letters, emails that I've read in the last 3 days against some of this have come from African Americans in our church. Saying, some pretty damning things. And I'm like, whoa, that's coming from another black person that wanted their pastor to know there are different sides of this. And that's where, when I can just be open to conversations with people. I know we're not supposed to look at the camera, it's fireside chat, but every one of you came from one family. We call that family of origin issues. How were you brought up? You all have different lenses that we see. You and I are completely different white dudes. Yeah. One, because of our age, and two, where the heck did you go to school?
Ecuador.
Quito, Ecuador. I visited that on a mission trip. I mean, you're the place I'd spend money to go visit on a mission trip. That was home for you for a while. I mean, your growing up experience and your view of America, because you lived outside of it for how many years?
11.
You grew up 11 years outside of America. So your view of America is greatly different from a kid that grew up in Texas.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, those are things when we can go, so help me understand. Not, well, let me tell you why, and Trump this, or Obama that, and let me tell you this. And then it's like, shut up and go, right. Hey, what about?
Right. So often I think when we take those stances and we do the, to quote unquote, Trump this, Obama that, I think we stand in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
And we scream something out more often than not. And you can tell the difference, right, on social media between something that's like said and something that's screamed. And often the things that are screamed, all you want back is the the attaboys, which is an echo chamber. It's your own voice coming back at you, or you're looking to start something up, which just doesn't feel helpful at this time. Without a crystal ball and without being able to see the future, what do you think the biggest mistake we can make right now is?
Doing nothing and being left alone in our own echo chamber, our own thoughts of, well, that's what's going on. Look at those people. Anytime we go to those people, you better find someone to dialogue that can help you understand those people. Right now, the biggest mistake is being angry, watching what's going on, and talking to only your friend group. That's the biggest mistake, because you will not grow, you will not learn, you will not understand, and you will not better yourself as American. I don't care what color you are. You will not better yourself until you get to someone and go, help me understand. Why is that happening? Why would you feel that way? And that's the problem, like you said, with our social media. We all want to be liked and we all want to be affirmed. And because of that, our social media will be around people that like what we like and affirm what we're saying. That does not help break systemic fill in the blank. Systemic racism, systemic bigotry, systemic socialism, and the economy grew up. I mean, it doesn't help us when we are like, well here's, and you're right? Yeah, I'm right, because look at all these people that agree with me. Well, that's your circle.
Right.
Live in someone else's circle. Follow people that you disagree with. Not to post, not to retweet, not to go, just to listen and go, what's there? Yeah. If you are in the smartest group in America and the only successful group, maybe you have a right to think you're right. But there are incredibly intelligent, successful people holding a different opinion, which tells me they're not all idiots. They're not all morons, and they don't all have problems. They know and feel something I don't know and feel. And if I'm going to be a leader in any way, I better know what they know and feel. I may still be allowed to disagree with it, but when I started doing that early on in two key areas, homosexuality and race, because I started doing youth ministry in Pomona, East LA County, inner city ministry, I started dealing with a lot of the African American community in my youth group. Caucasian was a minority where we lived. I was one of the only white guys on my entire block. It was all Latino and African American. And when I started asking questions, when I sat with the homosexual community and students and just going, not let me tell you why, or let me just going, so help me understand. So you look at her and nothing? Like that's a real, like I'm a married guy and I'm like, I shouldn't, and you, and go, no, I mean, I know she's a pretty girl, but nothing. When did that start? When did you first start realizing I'm think different? I feel like I'm wired different. And we can talk a whole lot about where that comes from and what, but it doesn't matter. What matters is, so what do you do with the person now? And I started to realize I have issues of race and I have issues of sexuality that I have a lot of thoughts and opinion and the Bible in my hand with truth on, and I don't really know what I'm talking about. So I just started asking questions, and man, my world started to open up and my heart started to open up to go, I've never been pulled over just for that. That's a real thing. When I started encountering countless of my families and students, even on our own trips, we would take our own youth group to Huntington Beach, and we would take our own youth group to with the big pier, Santa Monica, and I would watch security take my youth ministry kids, only the ones that were black aside. I started watching, I'm like, okay, they're all in my youth group, man. And that kid's one of my interns. And I was like, okay, that's profiling, and go, oh, and my eyes and my heart started to be open from a white guy that only knows what he knows and thinks I'm right to there's other rights and there's other truths. And I didn't get that until I started sitting with families and kids and students going, when did that start with you? And where's that come from?
What's the balance for you between, because I love that. We all walk into the world with our worldview and with our presuppositions. And so much of the time I'm blind to them. I'm blind to what I already assume and to what my upbringing, it puts a certain lens in front of me in which I view the world. And what's the balance there between holding on to truth and being confident in that truth as you seek that, and then being open to being wrong in your prejudices and in your worldview? That seems like a really slippery slope and a tricky tightrope to walk, to go like, okay, I want to stay grounded in biblical truth, but I also want to listen, and I want to be humble, and I want to be open to these conversations. I feel like there are a few people that do that really, really well, and there's a lot of people that do it really poorly.
Well, you just exposed the problem of what's happening right last week and this week in our culture, is that there is no absolute truth. What you said is, how do you do that? Listen to other people's truth and yet stay grounded in the truth. Right there, you have showed your immaturity and that you're not an intellectual. You're closed-minded because you believe there's an absolute truth to stay grounded in. Shame on you.
Right.
You will never be open and and that's the problem. The moment we give away there is an absolute truth, then your heart goes with whatever truth you're swimming with at the time. And this is why we find people going, but don't you? And I go, but whose truth? Well, everybody's got truth. There is no right and wrong. There is no absolute. And that's why you have to stay grounded in there's true. Man, we opened this box, didn't we? The problem with where we are today in a culture is the events of last week are exactly what was supposed to happen because of the choices we've made for the last 2 generations. You've got to take God out of America. You have to take God, and that there is one truth and one way. You have to take that out of the public arena. You can't have it in schools. You can't have it in courts. It's okay if Christians want to get together because they're feeble-minded, weak people who need a crutch to get through life. It's okay if you want to believe in one way, one Bible, one God, but we pity you. But we're going to get God out of the public arena. How is God ultimately defined in the Bible? He's a God of love and justice. That's God. Both. He's a God of love and justice. What are we crying out for today? Today. Where's the love? Where's the justice? You remove the source of it for the last 2 generations. What's Satan defined as in the Bible? Satan comes to
steal, kill, destroy.
What did we see this week? Someone was killed, and we have a generation of people taking selfies, celebrating what is being stolen and what is being destroyed. See, in the absence of God, love, and justice, that void will leave evil to come in. And what breaks my heart, what angers me, I'm not angry at the people. The people are following a design of an evil one. I am watching every night for the last 5 nights, a generation, your generation, taking selfies, cheering in front of people's homes, businesses, livelihoods being destroyed. And as soon as there's an open door and an open window, everyone's stealing and high-fiving. We are exactly where we should be as a society if you remove the God of love and justice. We saw someone killed, and now we cheer stealing, and destroying. And what do we want? We want love and justice. No, we don't. Because love and justice comes from a source. A source is a God of absolute truth. And that's where we are in America.
Yeah. And it seems like there's two extremes, right? There's the people that are taking the selfies, celebrating the looting, and then I think there's the other extreme going, see, everybody who's, for George Floyd are the ones that are taking the selfies of the looting.
And that's what perpetuates systemic racism
right.
and bigotry.
It's two extremes that are going, okay, this is the extreme sect of the rioting and looting side. This is the extreme sect looking at anybody who thinks this is a racist issue is rioting and looting. Yeah. And it just seems like we're missing each other. Whereas probably the vast majority of people aren't going, this isn't a whites against blacks issue. This is like an everybody against racists issue, right? Like
I have not met one white person that said, "Oh, that cop did what was right." I haven't met one.
Sure.
I mean, everyone agrees.
That person's psycho, and we would all go,
yeah, you should be in the cell next to him.
We're against you. Yeah.
What we saw was an incredibly horrific abuse of police authority and source against a black man. Now, was it racially intimidating? I don't know this guy that's being arrested. I don't know if this cop had anything against black people. It was an incredible injustice, horrific abuse of power. And it happened to be to a black guy, and it was caught on camera. And we all are outraged over that. All of us are. And that's the vast majority of people. And I say, man, protest. Let your voice be heard. You need to be seen and heard. Where are you seen and heard? You're seen and heard in the light. You're not seen and heard in the darkness. What's happening come nightfall isn't a part of protest. That's a part of the influence of evil. I'm not saying everyone that does that is evil, but they're under the influence of an enemy's camp that goes, we are going to delight in stealing and destroying because of killing. Yeah. And it all plays together. And unfortunately, for a lot of white Americans, they sit back and watch it, and it perpetuates exactly what we're going against. Look at what those black people are doing at night. They're destroying their own area. What a bunch of idiots. And I'm like, no, that is against our dialogue and against what we need to be doing.
Such a bad response.
Oh, you're getting me fired up. I thought we were talking about Philippians. We're going to delete this. No one will ever see it.
I love it. Well, it does really segue well because I think the abuse of the verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, I think is the same thing of missing two sides of extremes, right? Of going like, we're not truly listening. We're pulling out pieces and going, I'm going to focus on this piece of it. And if I'm on this side of the extreme, I'm going to focus on the other extreme and go, see, that's the issue. Yeah. And if I'm on this side of the extreme, I'm going to look at the extremists on that side and go, see, that's the issue, rather than entering into what we started talking about, which is a conversation of how do we humbly, a little bit walk on eggshells and step on the thin ice of this conversation, but do so because we're willing to take that step and we're willing to risk and we're willing to seek vulnerability by going, no, I'm going to have this conversation. But I think what makes that ice thicker, if you will, or what makes the ground more firm in the midst of that conversation is absolute truth. And it is the good news of the gospel. And when it comes to our last weekend sermon, we talked about the abuse of the verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, in sports and in whatever.
I'm going to get this job. I'm going to get this pay. I'm going to get this girl. I'm going to win this game.
Right. And it's
because I can do all things.
It's a blatant abuse. But I think Paul, in his writing from a cell, he says, I have learned. Twice he says it in that passage. I have learned. And that was a brutal learning process for him. Yeah. From shipwreck to being bitten by a snake to being kind of tip top of the Pharisaical community to persecuted. Jesus himself looking at Paul going, Paul, why do you persecute me? Right? That had to have been an intense moment with the God of the universe. And he says, I've learned the secret of being content. And I think a lot of that contentment comes from the humble stance of being able to walk and have conversations and see and strive towards something bigger than ourselves. I think that's been probably the number one thing that stood out to me in the book of Philippians is Paul's laser focus of this life is about more than just me. And there's something bigger going on here. Even how he opens his book, right? For me to live is Christ, to die is gain. Yeah. Chapter 3, I consider it all garbage in comparison to knowing Jesus. Chapter 4, right? How dare you? How dare you say
he said the S word in the Bible.
But, and then chapter 4, right? I've learned the secret to be content, and it comes from there will be a day where I stand with all tribes, all nations, all people, in front of a God and worship a God
Yeah.
that is bigger than just right here, right now in this moment, and that he is himself truth. Like John 14 says, he is this way, he is life itself. And to extreme one way or the other without the context in the middle is missing fundamentally the point in which Paul was trying to make all throughout Philippians, that there's something bigger going on here.
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, in the midst of, it feels like we are very zoomed in right now on this week, right? It doesn't feel like there's a lot else going on outside of this week. How does the word contentment even be brought up in a week like this?
Yeah.
How do we even tackle that as believers right now to go, if I stand on truth,
Yeah.
how do I walk forward in this?
Well, and you know what's, and I never thought of it through the way you just said, but my answers to people in the last 4 to 5 days who have said, man, with what you guys had to do when it came to shelter at home and not open the church and COVID-19, with this, man, how are you doing? How are you handling this? And really what you're saying is where I found contentment. Here's what I know. I know my God isn't freaking out about what's happening in America. I know my God isn't turning on Fox or CNN every night and going, I can't believe this is going on. I know who my God is. I know his plan, and I know that I win at the end. And that's what gives me that contentment to go through this, to go, God, you got this. This isn't my family. This isn't my nation. This isn't my society. And this isn't my church. God, it's all yours. And I'm yours. And when I know I am in his truth, then I know I'm in his hands. And there is no better contentment in the world than knowing he's got me. And if he's got me, he's got this. And I loved what you said. Paul said, I've learned the secret of being content, not successful, content. And that's why you said that verse is used so erroneously. I can do all things through Christ. That doesn't mean I'm going to be successful in all things. That doesn't mean I can get whatever I want through Christ. It goes, no, you will go through what you don't want with Christ. That's contentment. And you realize where Philippians is written. You know, one of the very last books he writes is toward the end of his life. He has had some decades of learning contentment. It didn't come quick. It was learned. It was constantly going, man, I put way too much in my stuff, into who I have in life and to what I have in life. Those things can be taken. He can't. And that's going back to that truth of, you know, God's will for your life is where are you in Christ, not where are you in life. Because if you're where you're supposed to be in Christ, he's got this, whatever it is. It's in Matthew 6:33. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Seek the things of God and to be like him, and he'll take care of everything else. And that's where I find my contentment at this season, even as a leader, going, oh, I got to make a statement. I'm going to do this. I know I'm going to get torn up, but God's got this. And this is temporary. Let them take their shots.
Yeah.
And I'll learn from it, and I'll learn how to be content, and we'll move on.
Yeah. And I think that's probably my biggest encouragement just as we close here for 9th and 10th graders, is you said Paul writes this with decades behind him, right? For most of our 9th and 10th graders, they have a decade behind them. You know, even
decade and a half.
For me, I turn 28 next week.
Woo!
And
Tres décadas.
Yeah, 2.5. I'm holding on to my youth. But I long for the decades that are in front of our 9th and 10th graders to be different. And I long for the decades in front of me to be different. And I want to be a learner, and I want to be somebody that walks in humility to say, I want to learn the secrets of being content in Christ as I take a step forward and go, I want to seek out those conversations, right? I want to find my friends in my community and just go, what's this like for you? I want to start a conversation. I want to listen. I don't just want to assume I'm right. And I don't want to stand in an echo chamber and just go, who agrees with me? Let's all talk, right? That just feels like such a miss right now. And I love Paul's perspective at the end of his life on death row, writing, going, I have learned the secret. And it's like, ooh, what have you learned? What have you learned? I've learned the secret of being content. Content? What's that like? Yeah. I've never even...
To love yourself, to love where you're at, to sleep cozy at night, not to have your worries, guilt, and fears. How do you do it?
Right, which seems like money.
Yeah.
The answer, that's got to be money. And he goes, no. I've learned the secret to being content. I'm good. I'm really good with where I'm at. And it happens through a relationship with Jesus, but that's a process. Right?
I do all things with him.
Yeah.
And because I do all things with him, he'll get me through all things. And I don't want to leave your, one final word to your 9th and 10th graders that give them, nightmares, but their world is not getting better. It will be severely worse by the time they're adults. You cannot look back at the last 200 years of America and say we're getting better. We're not. So if you want one more reason why you better hold on to Christ with both hands and learn that truth and walk with him, it's because for the sake of you and your future and your marriages and your kids, you will live in a worse time than we're living in now. And if you're going to make it, you better be able to go, I do everything with this God, and he's big enough. He has this. And if it means I'm walking through death row, I can do that too.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, Brownie, thanks, man. Thank you for finishing off our fireside chats. Thanks for addressing real issues in our life right now, and thanks for modeling it as a man, as a father, as a friend, as a pastor. So we love you a lot. Thanks, 910, and we'll catch you next time.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.